Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Matthew. Today, let's jump right into the Nikkei. If you have been following the financial news, you will notice that the Nikkei has hit 40,000 yen again. And when was the last time that it hit 40,000 yen? Well, let's jump right into the chart here. You can zoom in. This is a monthly basis, but December 1989. So the Nikkei, and shout out to my Bitcoin Serbia friend for pointing this out, has finally allowed investors from the 1980s in Japanese stocks to break even. So this just goes to show you the markets can be brutal. I recall the same jokes happening about 10 years ago, a little bit more now on CNBC, when silver made it back up to its former all-time highs from the 1980s of about $50 per ounce, which it briefly stayed at. So it is now with the Nikkei. Let's just zoom in and see from peak to peak here again. Very end of the 80s, all the way down. The low here, there's one low in 2003. A little bit of a bump for the global financial crisis, but then down again, probably about the same time, March of when the U.S. stock market bottomed in March of 09. Looks like here it was February of 7,500. And then from there, it slowly made its way back up. So if you bought the dip here, either in 2003 or 2009, then you'll be all right. But if you were a bullish Japanese tech stock investor in the 80s, you'd have a long, and you held, of course, you'd have a long way to wait to break even again. So I think that has good lessons on diversification, and it also has interesting lessons on the market. You know, I was quite young here in the 80s, certainly not investing in stocks, but from my readings of this time period, this was a very scary time for American supremacy. And by the way, I'm not saying anything unnecessarily good about America or unnecessarily bad about Japan. Obviously, some great stuff has come out of Japan. They're a top 3 economy in the world, massively successful country, and you know, it's a beautiful place. But from what I have read, this was a very scary time. American automakers were just losing. Japanese tech companies, or hi-fi, I believe, was the term in the 80s. Sony, of course, in particular, just dominating, completely taking over the market share of American companies. And everybody was so worried. And again, I don't say this to say that I necessarily care where the American economy is relative to the rest of the world. But, you know, things can definitely be a bubble. And in Japan, they absolutely had a bubble which took them 35 years to recover from. So a very, very interesting chart. Historical data here, actually, I have going back all the way to World War I. Again, this is thanks to my friend here, Nick Laird, in Australia. Not much happening between World War I and World War II. How many companies, I haven't vetted this data, how many companies he was back sourcing this, backdating, you know, to find the equivocal value of the index at that time. I'm not sure. Right now, the Nikkei is 225 companies. Obviously, there was not that many in the index, or you could not have made an index with that many back then. Nonetheless, we see after World War II, after they come into the Western fold, you know, they have a just steady growth rate until really late 70s, 80s. Then they start to explode. So a very interesting chart. You know, some messages there about diversification, some messages about... Just want to take a moment to remind you that this show is brought to you by Trezor, home of the original Bitcoin hardware wallet. Established in 2012, Trezor means business in Bitcoin security and functionality. Whether you're protecting your identity with Tor or using Trezor Suite to smoothly send or receive a Bitcoin transaction. Trezor gives you full control of your coins in a transparent and fully open source manner, both on the hardware and software level. So head on over to Trezor.io to grab your Trezor Safe 3 with the secure element, Model T with the touchscreen, or the original Trezor 1, as well as a ton of available accessories to back up your keys and keep your coins safe. We're proud to be associated with Trezor this year. Don't believe the hype, right? I mean, again, from an American perspective, the Japanese were about to eat the lunch of American hegemony and production and technical capabilities. America, of course, survived, and Japan survived. But the Japanese market, interestingly, they started their QE experiments all the way somewhere here in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had about a decade ahead of American central banks, which were really starting QE here after the global financial crisis. And it doesn't matter how much money you print, the stock market will still go down. And of course, eventually it will go back up on the heels of a lot of money printing, but of course some genuine economic growth as well. So stocks are volatile. Let's do a rolling trailing 12-month return here, okay? Again, stock prices can go up, stock prices can go down. I think it's very interesting that just to see the massive fall here from 40,000 on the Nikkei to 8,000 in the early 2000s. You can have major dips which will just crush your returns, right? All right, let's look at the trailing 12 months. So this just looks 12 months back based on any point in time. Here you start to go negative. In March 1990, you're down 9%. Then you're quickly down 40%. And, depending on how long you hold, that can crush you more and more. Then you go back up, all right, a little bit in the early 90s, or at least somewhat to neutral, then down again, then back up, 22% here gains, then down again. I don't need to read them all out. You can see how it works. Stock prices go up, stock prices go down in these sort of mid-term cycles. It's not my interest or my game to try to time those, but you can see, regardless of where they go up or they go down, you better be careful which market you are choosing, because if you buy at the wrong point, it could take you a generation to get back to break even. And that's where the Nikkei is today, finally back to 40,000 in March 2024. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Thanks, as always, for watching. Talk soon.